In this video, we're talking through how to make sure that you give engaging interviews so that when you are on that interview, when you're on that podcast as a guest, what you're doing is inspiring and entertaining people. So, we're going to walk through exactly what you need to be thinking about in terms of your delivery. People tend to listen to podcasts for several reasons. The first is that they want to be taught something or they want to be educated around a particular reason. And if you know your topic of influence, this is where you can make sure people understand not only the why it matters, but the what it actually is and how it can work for them. So, your job as a guest is to inform people about the value of the value you're about to deliver. You want to think about how you can teach. People love to learn, and listening through audio and learning through audio is a really powerful way to retain information because not only are you reaching the conscious level of learning, but you are also reaching the subconscious through the audio. So even if someone kind of switches off through what you're saying, at a subconscious level, it is still reaching their ears. So you want to think about what are the teaching points you want to deliver. Now, these might already be in those bullet points, those value bombs that we've talked about, but your job is to educate. So think about what it is you most want someone to walk away having learnt from you. People come onto podcasts because they want to be entertained. They want something that is going to be engaging. They want something that is going to be humorous. This doesn't mean you have to be a clown. This doesn't mean you have to muck about, but you can bring a lightness and a humorous quality to some of the stories that you tell. So think about how you can do that, because they say that if we can make someone laugh and we can make them cry, they will love us and they'll buy anything. So, how can you have that playfulness within those interviews you do? Because the more playfulness you have, the more appealing that is. It also makes it a much more enjoyable experience for you and the host because you are having a fun conversation. You want to think about how you can present some level of challenge to the thoughts that a listener is having. So this might be that maybe you're challenging the host on their views, but you don't want to get into an argument about it. Maybe you're positioning to the listener that you want them to be challenged in the way they're viewing a particular model of the world, a particular way that they are currently getting results. So getting people to shift their own thinking by deliberately deciding yourself that you want to bring some element of challenge into what you are talking about can be a really powerful way, again, to get people involved with what you're saying. You want, as a guest, to be confident. Now, this isn't about being cocky or arrogant. It is about knowing your stuff. It is about trusting that you know what you're talking about and that in this interview, yes, you might be the guest whilst it is the host's playground, but you have every right to be there. So own your space. And again, if this is something that does trouble you, if you know those nerves get the better of you, you might want to find out about my Confidence to Get Visible course, because it really does help you with those limiting beliefs and that self confidence to put yourself out there. A big part of why people listen to podcasts is because they want to be inspired. You are reaching one life at a time, that one individual who you can shift, motivate, inspire, and engage at a time. So people are listening because they want that personal growth, they want that business growth, they want that level of connection, potentially because they don't have people around them who are interested in the things that they are interested in. So how can you be that person that inspires them to do something different with their life? I desperately want you to avoid going into a monologue, going into an element where you are just talking and talking and talking and talking and talking. Yes, you have an important story to share that could entertain, lift, inspire, educate. But this is a two-way conversation. So if you find that you've been talking for quite a long time, yes, it might be valuable to the audience, but how can you bring the host into that so it becomes a conversation? And more importantly than this, please do not read what you're saying. Even if you know that there are certain points you want to cover, do not read it. People can tell when you are reading. They can hear it. And particularly when we're listening to audio only, our ears are attuned to work out what's going on around us. Our sense of hearing becomes so much stronger. So please do not read it. That will come across in what you're doing. You will be stilted. People won't connect with you in the same way. It's a major switch off. So please trust yourself. Trust that it's okay to have those stumbles, to have those pauses, to reach for the words that you want to have. People actually quite like that vulnerability and that naturalness that comes across in normal human speech. Don't be afraid to ask questions of the host, and don't be afraid to ask questions of the listener. The more that you make this a two-way conversation, the more interesting it's going to be for the listener and for the host. And through asking questions and sitting back and not just being the passive person in this conversation, but someone who is actually directing the flow of the conversation, can actually be just a much more engaging experience all round. I want to talk a little bit now about being vulnerable in your podcast interviews. So, I'm not talking here about coming onto an interview and sharing warts and all and sharing absolutely everything about your life. You don't have to. There are limits that you can go to. But if in a conversation there is something you decide you want to share that feels right in the moment, don't be afraid to go there. Don't be afraid to share your imperfections. Don't be afraid to share the things that have failed for you. It's very often that vulnerability that allows us to feel much more connected. And it's very often the sharing of that vulnerability that actually inspires somebody or helps them learn in a much greater way. So don't be afraid of going to places in the interviews that you hadn't expected. Very often that is where the magic lies. Don't be afraid to have fun. A podcast interview should be a lot of fun. It should be something you come away feeling really great about, that you feel pumped about, that there's an energy to it because you've been fully present for that conversation. And a quick word about this. I want you to feel grateful and be grateful to the podcast host, even on the smaller shows. It doesn't matter how small somebody's audience is, because when you are on that show, as a guest, you are looking to transform one life at a time, and you never know who is listening. You never know who needs to hear that message or who is listening and has a great connection that could make a difference to your business. So please have an attitude of gratitude on every show that you go on. And remember that the host is absolutely doing you a favor. You are not doing them a favor. They could have anybody on their show. They are giving you access to their audience. They are paying to host their podcast. They are putting time, effort, and energy into editing, uploading, doing the show notes, building the search engine optimization elements. You are rocking up for less than an hour. So remember, the host is doing you a favor no matter how big or how small their show is. So I would make sure that there is, again, that element of gratitude and remembering that the host is doing you a favor and not the other way around. So I hope that you have found this useful, thinking about how to be more engaging in your interviews. You want to educate, entertain, you want to inform, inspire. You are changing one life at a time. And chiefly, you want that element of gratitude and being present and aware whilst you are in that conversation.